What's up, everybody? I'm Ryan Thomas. Welcome to the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. Once again, I am your host. Actually, I am always your host. Hopefully, you guys have been tuning in to the latest editions of the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. I've been bringing on guests onto the show. David Poole, we talked about the UFC. He's a mixed martial arts fan, as am I. Brandon Knapp, writer for MyFantasySportsTalk.com and DetroitLionsPodcast.com. He's a huge Detroit Lions fan. It was great having him on, and it was a lot of fun talking to him about the Detroit Lions and what is in store for them in the 2016 season. And most recently, last night, I talked to Salvatore Angelo. Actually, yesterday, I talked to Salvatore Angelo about the 2016 Buffalo Bills. Sal is a longtime Buffalo Bills fan, and we had a good time. It was a good time. So I definitely plan on having more guests on the show over the course of this football season, and I'm very excited, of course, for the 2016 season, my fantasy drafts, all that fun stuff. So this episode of the Thomas Take is dedicated once again to the Buffalo Bills, with recent rumblings that Tyrod Taylor could be getting an extension, 2 years, $35 million, $17 million per year. That's not official, but those are some rumblings that are going around. I've heard rumblings of a 4-year deal as well. So we'll want to keep our eye on that as Bills fans, and I intend on keeping my eye on that storyline as the weeks go by. Also, will Le'Veon Bell be suspended for the 4 games that he was suspended? Will it be a 4-game suspension? Will it be less than that? It'll be very interesting to see, but only time will tell. My question is, with all the injuries that the Buffalo Bills have had, Reggie Ragland especially, he's electing to go under the knife, electing to have surgery on that torn ACL. He will be out for his rookie season, the entire 2016 season. Devastating news for the Buffalo Bills, devastating news more so for Reggie Ragland. Of anyone that's disappointed, I do not doubt the fact that Reggie Ragland is extremely disappointed in the fact that he is missing his rookie season. I'm very disappointed myself because Reggie Ragland was a guy that I thought would go to Buffalo in the first round. He fell to Buffalo in the second round of the 2016 NFL Draft, and I was very excited. I thought it was the coup of their offseason, the guy that really would pay dividends and make an immediate impact this season in his rookie year. Realistically be the best rookie that they drafted by season's end of this year in 2016, but that is obviously not going to happen. Reggie Ragland out for the entire 2016 season. Begs the question, are the Bills in trouble? Is one injury worth, saying that the Bills are in trouble? To that question, I say no. I say no, one injury is not devastating unless you're talking about when Peyton Manning went down for the Indianapolis Colts and they had to rely on Curtis Painter. In that case, of course. But I'm thinking that the Buffalo Bills defense has some holes in it. Although they replaced Reggie Ragland with Brandon Spikes, Brandon Spikes is not Reggie Ragland. So it's really tough, to say this, but I have some fears heading into the 2016 season for the Buffalo Bills. A friend of mine, Adam Zarpa is his name, a coworker of mine, he mentioned the fact to me, he made a very valid point, something that I didn't even think of, that the guys that have had the injury problems on the Bills are not even their most injury-prone players. So there could be injuries and then injuries on top of injuries if those injury-prone guys get hurt, like the Tyrod Taylors, the Sammy Watkins of the world. LaShawn McCoy is another guy that has had his fair share of injuries over the course of the last few years. So health is a huge question mark for the Buffalo Bills in the 2016 season, and it's a question mark big enough that I really think it could drastically affect the Buffalo Bills because they have a lack of depth on their roster, and that can only be attributed to overreaching for players, overreaching for Sammy Watkins, reaching on E.J. Manuel, drafting him in the first round. The draft is extremely important year by year, it makes such a huge difference. Whether you have a good draft or a bad draft is to be seen as the years go by, and it can really affect your team years down the road. So in making those moves, making those decisions that weren't necessarily the best ones for the Bills, I anticipate, the fact that, just depth-wise, they have very limited depth on their roster. Buffalo signed Brandon Spikes, as I mentioned, David Hawthorne, 2 linebackers. Brandon Spikes sat out the 2015 season. His last season he played with Buffalo was in 2014 with the Buffalo Bills, obviously, and David Hawthorne had played for the New Orleans Saints under Rob Ryan, the now Buffalo Bills assistant head coach, when Rob Ryan was a defensive coordinator for the Saints. So, those 2 moves right there aren't bad moves. In the wake of those injuries, to be able to bring in those guys, those are decent moves. It's just the fact that, the starting product, the original product, is not what it once was. And to have both of your first 2 draft choices, both Shaq Lawson and Reggie Ragland, out for the start of the season, that's not necessarily a good predicament to be in, obviously. And, it goes without saying that, what happens last year happens this year. What if Tyrod Taylor goes down again? Who's going to step up and be that starting quarterback for us? E.J. Manuel or Cardale Jones? Cardale Jones has raw talent, but I don't know if he's quite ready to man a NFL offense quite yet. And E.J. Manuel obviously has shown that he is not ready to do that yet. So there's a serious question as far as the quarterback position, depth-wise. Some analysts say that we have the most depth at quarterback that we've had in a long time. I think Jim Kelly and Frank Reich would kind of disagree with that. The one analyst, I believe it was on ESPN, said that Buffalo has a dynamic group of quarterbacks, a more dynamic group than ever, that could really help their team if Tyrod goes down. I don't know if he was watching last season, but when Tyrod went down, the Bills went 0-2 in both games that Tyrod was out. And, circumstances, in football dictate the pace of the game. So, they're out. Tyrod Taylor is out. They're playing against Cincinnati. Cincinnati was on a roll at that point. They were going to lose that game, I think, regardless. But, one game can make all the difference in the world when you're at the end of the season and you finish your season 8-8 instead of 9-7, or 9-7 instead of 10-6, or 10-6 instead of 8-8. Or 8-8 instead of 10-6, actually. So it's just very frustrating. I have questions about the depth. I have questions about the health of their roster. Really, wide receiver-wise, it's Sammy Watkins and Robert Woods, and then, everybody else is kind of a hodgepodge of wide receivers. So you have Sammy Watkins number 1, Robert Woods number 2. I like that, but if there's injuries, I have serious question marks, serious questions about their ability to weather the storm. But I have faith, being that I'm a Buffalo Bills fan, first and foremost, you have to keep the faith that the Bills will have a decent season. But these last few weeks do not bode well for the Bills long-term in 2016. But a topic that I talked with Sal Angelo about was Rex Ryan, a guy that I really admire in a lot of different ways. Reason why is because he carries himself with such a relaxed bravado that it is refreshing to see a coach react that way to certain situations in some regards. Other regards, obviously, it is not. You want your head coach to take things seriously, which I think he does, but he takes the brunt of the responsibility as a head coach should, and he provides a team with a direction and a brand that the Buffalo Bills haven't had in quite some time. And if the Bills were to fire a guy like Rex Ryan, that would not make much sense to me long term. Where would we go next? The direction of the team. I was listening to an interview with Terry Pagula, the Buffalo Bills owner, on the John Murphy show, and I really enjoy listening to John Murphy's show. He does a great job. He's one of the guys that I really admire in the business of sports journalism and sports broadcasting. And he does a great job with his interviews, and he pretty much really opened things up with Terry, asking him, if things don't go well, who will the blame fall on? And Terry answered very professionally, saying that they don't talk like that. They perceive that things will go well and deal with it when the time comes. I think Terry likes Rex Ryan, and I think Terry likes Doug Whaley. I don't think he wants anything to change there. So whether the Bills miss the playoffs or make the playoffs, if they miss the playoffs, I think things will stay the same. If they make the playoffs, obviously they'll stay the same. So either way, I think they'll stay the same. I think, Rex is here for 5 years. I think they're going to let him finish that 5-year term out, and if they don't see improvement in that 5 years, then obviously he's gone. But this is his second year as the Buffalo Bills head coach. Still really early in the 5-year plan. Still very early in his vision for the future of the team. I think that the future is bright with this team. I just think that there's a 16-year wait that fans are a little impatient when really we have to realize that this is a 1-year wait for this regime. We have a new owner. We have a new coach. He's in his second year. Second-year coordinator, second-year position coaches, second-year starting quarterback, second-year starting running back, and a young roster with Sammy Watkins leading the way at wide receiver. And, There is bright spots on this team. There are bright spots. There are pieces to this team, layers to this team that I really expect to only flourish as the years go by. But firing your head coach, changing your head coach, does not do it. That does not make your team better. It only makes you go 5 steps back rather than 1 step forward. I don't like the idea of them firing Rex Ryan, and I've felt that way since they hired him. People are like, oh, he's saying all this stuff, he's making all these guarantees. Yes, that's what Rex Ryan does, but he does it to motivate his players. He doesn't do it to, gloat about himself. While it might seem that way, he does it in actuality to motivate the players that are on the team, and I really respect that. So hopefully, are the Bills in trouble? Yes, I have fears. I'm willing to admit and be a realist and say that I do have real fears that they could end up finishing 6-10 or 7-9. But regardless, I'm excited for this 2016 season. I'm going to keep my hopes up rather than down in the wake of this Reggie Ragland injury, as should you guys, the Bills fans and the listeners listening to this show, and expect so many more guests over the course of the next, many years to come, that I continue to do this. I'm going to continue to do this for a long time. I really enjoy it. Tomorrow, I was hoping it would be today, but tomorrow I'm going to have Deshaun Vincent on the show. We're going to talk about the 2016 Dallas Cowboys, the preview to the Dallas Cowboys season. Deshaun Vincent's a longtime buddy of mine. We went to high school together. He played football. He knows the game very well, and he knows the Dallas Cowboys very well. And I'm really interested to see what his full take is on the 2016 Dallas Cowboys, Ezekiel Elliott. What was his mindset heading into that draft choice? What direction did he think Dallas was going to go? I anticipated that they would take Ezekiel Elliott. I said that pretty publicly, and they did. And I think that will end up being one of the better picks of that draft for many years to come. There you have it, guys. I am Ryan Thomas. I am the host of the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. That was the Thomas Take.